Welcome to the latest edition of Free Association Radio. It's a Monday edition. It's kind of a Mercury Retrograde edition. It's the 11th house, and formerly known as Navigating the Astrological Matrix, which we used to do on Wednesdays. And we're going to be doing this on Mondays now for 2 hours every Monday, and probably will wind up changing that theme music at some point. I also had some David Holmes astrology theme music that I used to use, but then YouTube and Google started getting on my case for using it. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host, and I'll be here for the next 2 hours. That's right, 2 hours of chronological linear time, and we're going to be talking astrology mostly. Might get into the tarot a little bit later. But this is going to be about astrology today, for the most part, especially for the first 2 hours of the show. And it's kind of an interesting time to do this show because the moon is in Aquarius, and Aquarius, of course, is the 11th sign of the zodiac and the custodian of the 11th house. So we are getting a lot of 11th house symbolism just straight out of the gate with that Aquarian moon. And currently at 14 degrees as well. I wonder what the Sabian symbol for the 14-degree moon is. Why don't we just kind of look that up very quickly here, and that way we can have an understanding about what's going on with the Sabian symbol. Let's go in here. Let's go over here. So Sabian symbols. Sabian symbols, by the way, if you're not familiar with them, were created by L.C. Wheeler and Mark Edmund Jones in San Diego, California. I believe back in the 1925 is when they were created. Very interesting story. L.C. Wheeler basically she was an intuitive. She was like a trance-channel medium. My good friend Linda Hill is the expert on L.C. Wheeler and Sabian symbols. I'm also a huge Dane Rudyard fan with Sabian symbols. But L.C. Wheeler was, I guess for the most part, an invalid, and she spent a lot of time in a wheelchair. And Mark Edmund Jones was kind of an interesting figure, most likely a Freemason, and very into esoterica. And so the two of them in a parked car in San Diego, in Balboa Park. The chat room is open. You should be able to get into the chat room now. The chat room is there. The chat room is wide open. So I leave Facebook on for just a few minutes early in the show, just in case somebody wants to communicate with me, like our good friend Gloria just did. But the chat room is wide open. Come on in. So getting back to the Sabian symbols, they did the Sabian symbols in a parked car in Balboa Park over the weekend. A weekend in 1925, with L.C. Wheeler coming up with a symbol for every degree. And some of them are really interesting, and some of them are real head scratchers. But one of the things that I've learned from Linda Hill is that you always take into account the degree before, the degree during, and the degree after, because there seems to be some kind of evolutionary pattern with these symbols. So let me get in here for a second. Let me look at the symbol for Aquarius 15. So there are three. So we're going to look at Aquarius 14 to 15, and then 15 to 16. So it is a train entering a tunnel. That's 14 to 15. And then 15 to 16, two lovebirds sitting on a fence and singing happily. Which is apropos because I have two swallows who have made a nest right outside of my deck here in my apartment. And a train entering a tunnel, that is a symbol of death, by the way. In case you're wondering, trains and tunnels, sex and death. A very Freudian symbol there. I like the two lovebirds sitting on a fence and singing happily. And then finally, I guess if you wanted to go to that third symbol, it would be a big businessman at his desk. And so I am currently at my desk speaking with you. So Perhaps this will turn into a big businessman kind of moment for yours truly. So we have the moon in Aquarius at 14 degrees, Mercury going backwards at 0 degrees, and today it is conjuncting my natal Mars. So relocated here in Austin, Texas, I have Mars in the 10th house, and I have the moon, or Mercury today, moving backwards and conjuncting my relocated Mars. Maybe we could talk about relocation today in the second part of the show, or the second half hour of the show. Relocation is a really fascinating, and I mean fascinating, aspect to astrology. And I'll put myself out there. I'll use myself as the relocated guinea pig. We'll talk about that in the second half hour of the show. Venus is at 21 Taurus. By the way, the symbol for 0 degrees Mercury in Cancer is, again, a fairly interesting one. And it has to do with the ending of one thing and the beginning of another. So one of the reasons why I'm doing this show again is I took a break for a few months because I didn't want to get spread too thin. I was doing a lot of Gaiam TV, and my run at Gaiam is over. I did 23 episodes. I'm very proud of the work that I did there. And you can still go to the 11th house in Gaiam and watch all 23 of my episodes. And but as of today, we are no longer working together, at least formally. Also have Jay on the show from time to time. I love Jay. I love his work, and he and I obviously have some simpatico connection. But the official arrangement between Gaiam and I is over. So 0 degrees Cancer is on a ship. The sailors lower an old flag and raise a new one. So we're lowering the old flag, navigating the astrological matrix, the old flag being the 11th house TV show on Gaiam, and we are raising a new one. Today the new flag is raised. It is raised. The 11th house. And you are a part of it. The degree after it is a man on a magic carpet hovers over a large area of land. Now, who's always dug the whole concept of the magic carpet? Who in their right mind has not thought about having a magic carpet at some point in time in their life, and how cool that would be? Well, you know the real story behind the magic carpets. Magic carpets became magic when you smoked hashish. That's right. And then they would put these incredible designs of sacred geometry inside the carpet. And then you could theoretically, with the right design and the right experience with hashish, contemplating the universe, that the magic carpet itself will become a portal, that the carpet itself will become a portal based on the sacred geometry of the carpet and the hashish. And hence a sense of flying and or levitation, the levitation of the spirit. So we're talking in a metaphoric sense, right? All right, so what else is happening today astrologically? We have Mars in Libra, 13 degrees. That's right on my moon. So I have moon on my Mars. I have Mercury on my Mars, transiting Mercury on my Mars, and transiting Mars right on my moon Mercury. So we have an interesting combo here with Mercury Mars and Mercury Mars. Mars on my Mercury and Mercury on my Mars. Wow. No wonder I decided to start a show today. Jupiter is at 23 degrees Cancer, moving very quickly. Jupiter moves into Leo, and that's going to be fascinating. When I have loved Jupiter in Cancer. It's been a great aspect for me, and I had a lot of wonderful opportunities come my way with Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter in Leo is going to be a very different energy, and I'll tell you who is going to feel very bold and confident with Jupiter in Leo, and that is one Barack Hussein Obama, who, of course, is based on the chart that we know of, is a Leo. So look for Mr. Obama to take some risks here fairly soon. Now, Jupiter does go into Leo on the 17th of July. So keep that date in mind. 17th of July, 30 days from now, Jupiter goes into Leo. So if you have anything in Leo in your chart, especially the early degrees, it's going to be aspected by that Jupiter. If you're a Leo ascendant, or if you have the Sun in Leo, Mercury in Leo, Moon in Leo, Venus in Leo, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter in Leo, what's going to be very interesting is that the Pluto and Leo generation, the baby boomers, they're going to be feeling their oats as well. So look for a major push with baby boomer culture and having them come back really in a pretty dramatic kind of way. I would think that one of the political symbols of boomer culture would be Marianne Williamson and her run for Congress in the 33rd district in Southern California. Of course, Southern California being related to that 33rd degree and also the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. I believe is it the Sovereign General Elect? Is that the degree? Anyway, Jupiter moves into Leo on the 17th. So anything that you have in Leo, any planet you have in Leo, that's going to be from roughly 0 to 5 degrees. And you could even have something, I guess, in late Cancer that might get some out of sign juice from Jupiter. But Jupiter moves quickly. It's a fast-moving planet. Case in point, it starts off at 0 degrees on the 17th, and then it moves into the first degree on the 21st. So roughly about 4 days per degree with Jupiter. But people that have Jupiter planets, I've got Uranus in Leo in my chart, although that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction won't take place for me until 2015 because my Uranus is in the latter degrees of Leo. So it's another potential aspect, people with Uranus and Leo. Jupiter coming in and expanding those Leo traits and expanding the kind of the Leo coloration of the chart. Well, Leos are cool people. They're interesting people. They're charismatic people. They're big. They have big personalities. As a baseball manager, as a Little League manager, I have always made a note that Leo baseball players, kids, tend to be really good players. And they tend to be good players in games versus practices, which, again, I found really fascinating. I had a player on my team last year who was a Leo. He barely came to practice. If we had 5 practices, he might be at 2, if I was lucky. But game time, this kid was on. He loved being on the stage. So if you have a Leo child, keep that in mind. They really like being on some kind of a stage. Now, often we think that the stage is a literal stage that you walk up on and there's lights and a proscenium and all the stuff that we associate with a production on a stage. Well, that's one very literal example of being on a stage. Another example of being on stage would be a performance with a show, like a rock concert or something like that. In the 20th century, we've gotten into television, we've gotten into film. It's another type of stage. And now we have the virtual stage, the silicon cinema, the actual gate or the portal of the computer itself. So it's a different kind of stage, but it's still a stage. YouTube is a stage for people. Luckily, I've gotten out of that stage. It's a joke. But so people who have Leo in their charts, they need a stage of some sort in order to shine. Why? Because Leo needs to feel loved. That's what they do. They need to feel loved. So if you have somebody that has anything in Leo in their chart, know that one of the most important things in that person's life is to feel like they're loved. Very important. So if you have a Leo kid, or if you have a Leo lover, if they have Venus in Leo, if they have Moon in Leo, if they have Jupiter in Leo, you need to let that person know that they are loved and appreciated. And you do that, and they will be extremely loyal. They'll open their hearts. They'll open their pocketbooks. They'll be the type of, friend or life partner or lover that is really going to be there for you in a very generous way. Now, the challenge is that if they don't get it often enough, or they don't feel like they're getting the right level of it, they can be easily bruised. And sometimes, because Leo has such a large personality, they can turn that bruising, that vulnerability, into feeling offended. So you have to tread carefully in some ways with people that have a lot of Leo in their chart. But they're going to get Jupiter coming in and bringing them love, bringing them the opportunity to be on a stage of some sort. Why? Because they want to feel that love. They want to feel that adoration. They want to know that people care about them. Leo, by the way, might be the most insecure sign, which I think is fascinating. If you play around with, let's say, Leo on the ascendant, right, then they would have Virgo on the second house cusp. And they would have Cancer, very sensitive Cancer, in the 12th house. So there would be this underlying kind of sensitivity to the Leo character, that they would actually bruise easily and need more than what their very outward and extroverted persona might suggest at times. You can do this exercise with any sign, by the way. You can put the sign that's on the ascendant and then look at what's in the 12th house, because generally speaking, that's going to be the shadow of the sign. Does that make sense to you? Because that's what we don't see. We don't see the 12th house. So if you're somebody who has a Sagittarius ascendant, the shadow is Scorpio, which is kind of interesting, right? Because Sagittarius can be very didactic and very strong and very strident, and this is the truth, and this is how things are, and it can be almost like Moses on the mountain with the 10 Commandments. But behind all that, in that Scorpionic place, is something darker. Is something that maybe the Sagittarius rising might be harboring. There could be something beneath all of the kind of didactic vitriol, or the desire or need to experience some kind of sovereign truth. So, and whatever that thing is, well, that's going to be up to the Sagittarian person, the Sagittarian personality, to experience in their own life. And when we deal with the 12th house, which we could do a whole show on the 12th house at some point, when we deal with the 12th house, what we're really talking about is the deepest stratum of our spiritual reflections. It's that place. It's that dark pool where the implicate order, which is the inner life, really, and I'm using terms from physics now. The implicate order, which I believe is the inner life, has its projections made manifest on the explicate order, which is the outer life. Right? This is David Bohm, the physicist. He came up with this whole idea of the implicate and explicate order. And we can look at this from a spiritual and even an astrological sense, that the implicate order would be representative of the 12th house, and the explicate order would be the ascendant in the first house in the personality. So we can do this exercise with any sign, right? Let's try another one. You have Aries. Let's not put Aries. I guess we can put Aries. We put Aries on the ascendant. What's the 12th house? Well, the 12th house is Taurus. So in order for the Aries personality to be an Aries personality, to be daring, to be a pioneer, to take risks, to not give a shit about what other people think or say, they need to have that Taurian place figured out in their lives. That's solidity. That's money. That's finances. The more that they have in their life in terms of all those things that I just mentioned, the more they can be in Aries, the more they can take risks, because they know that if they fail, that they have some kind of parachute in some ways with Taurus in the 12th, that they can land on terra firma. But if the terra firma would be maybe not so firm, nice and cushioned, big bale of hay or something like that. So we can see how the ascendant, or at least the personality of every sign, has its own shadow reflection, and that's generally the sign before it as it's worked out through the 12th house. What else do we have cooking here astrologically today? Let's see, Jupiter, we just mentioned, is in Cancer and moving in a month, will be in the sign of Leo. Then we have Saturn in Scorpio, going backwards, going retrograde. I think Saturn gets back to 16 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. And Saturn retrograde Scorpio, it's all about power, 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 power. And it's about untangling power. It's about untangling corruption. It's about untangling our sort of, darker aspects and darker elements to society, which is Saturn, Capricorn at large, but also in a lot of ways our societal or our collective or our civilized selves, right? Because that's what Saturn is. And so when Scorpio comes into play, we all have to look at, how we cover up or hide or shield or whatever those things are. Again, we're, sort of related to the 12th house in some ways. Although Scorpio is the 8th house, it's a similar process, but the 8th house is more accessible. It's not as deep and mystical and confounding as the 12th house is at times. The 8th house is the house of depth, psychology, and shamanism. So if you want to, you can explore your issues through the 8th house. And so we're, as a society, we're kind of going through that right now. And there's some interesting things taking place over in Iran, Baghdad. It's like, we're on the verge of yet another war. And we are going up against a group known as ISIS. Yes, ISIS. ISIS Unveiled, the great work by Madame Blavatsky. And ISIS is the great Earth Mother, right? I mean, you've seen the pictures of ISIS with, Osiris at her breast, right? Is it Osiris? Yeah. So ISIS is the great Earth Mother. And what sign is she? That's Taurus, by the way. Isis is Taurus. So what we have here is the opposite of Saturn and Scorpio. So this is interesting. It's going to be fascinating to see how it gets played out over the course of the next few days, because we've got another war on our hands. We don't have enough wars, apparently. We need a few more. Saturn, Scorpio, again, retrograde, and Saturn will be retrograde until, let me give you that date, the 21st of July. So July is an interesting month because we're seeing some changes in signs take place in July. First of all, there's the change from Jupiter in Cancer to Jupiter in Leo. That's on the 17th. Then we have Saturn going direct. That's on the 21st. Venus goes into Cancer, 0 degrees Cancer, on the 19th. So on the 16th, the 19th, and the 21st, we see a number of signs or number of planets make some shifts. If we go a little bit further out, on the 22nd, Uranus also makes a shift, and Uranus goes retrograde. So we're going to see a Uranus retrograde taking place also in July. Pluto will still be retrograde then, and Neptune in Pisces will also be retrograde. Neptune and Pluto do not go direct for quite a while. All you people that have middle degrees Capricorn in your chart somewhere, I'm sure you're going to be loving having Pluto come back and cross over whatever planet that is. Me, yours truly, I have Saturn in Capricorn, so I've got Pluto for one final act, crossing my Saturn, and it going direct finally the day after my birthday, the 23rd of September. Saturn will go direct and will begin to move, Pluto will go direct and move away from my Saturn for the rest of my life. It's been an interesting journey indeed. Neptune stays retrograde for quite a while, and Neptune does not go direct until November. It will be 4 degrees, so we're still at the very early degrees of Neptune in Pisces, 4 degrees. So the big planets finally go direct in September, November, and then ultimately for Uranus, it will go direct in December. So as we say goodbye to the rapidly, and I mean rapidly advancing year of 2014, by year's end, which is not that far off, it is 6 months away, half a year away, the major planets will all be moving forward. So we'll have some interesting momentum taking place at the beginning of 2015. And oh, by the way, Saturn moves into Sagittarius on the 24th, the night before Christmas, where we supposedly celebrate the birthday of Sananda Emmanuel. Saturn moves into Sagittarius. Now that, I believe, is a really important shift. And we're not going to get into it today. We'll get into Saturn and Sagittarius in another show. Maybe we'll do that on next Monday or somewhere down the line as we get closer to the Saturn shift. But I think it's going to be really profound. And always, whenever Saturn gets into those last degrees, 27, 28, 29 degrees, things happen. Things go off. You begin to get a sense of the energy of the new sign coming in, but also, the final kind of, think of a star that's going into a supernova phase. And just before it goes dark and ultimately might even become a black hole, it hits this apotheosis, this blazing apotheosis. And so the energy is going to be spent, but it's got one final kind of flash before it does. That's right around 27, 28 degrees, by the way. 29 degrees, you hit the anaretic degree, and everything is kind of inverting and going back into its dark genesis in some ways. So it can be reborn into the next sign. So I guarantee you that December will be really interesting with this Saturn in Scorpio, the final days of Saturn in Scorpio, November and December. And Saturn moves very quickly once it gets into that direct phase in motion. Where else are we with some astrology? Today is, I wanted to mention something about Uranus. I found this out yesterday. I just put up a new post on the website, by the way. Maybe I'll read that in the second part of the show. By the way, we are going to do free readings. We're going to get back into the live reading mode, and I actually kind of miss it. I enjoy, helping people. It's a lot of fun, and sometimes some real magic can take place. By the way, we are not always going to talk about astrology on this show. We were talking about it today because, the moon's in Aquarius, and it's the 11th house. But we're going to talk about tarot. We're going to talk about numerology. We're expanding the template here. It's the 11th house. It's not just going to be about astrology. It's going to be about these systems of divination and wisdom that allow us to have a greater understanding of the explicit order, emerging from the implicate order. It's a really fascinating kind of debate about using these tools so that we can have some kind of map and language over our inner lives, or at least in conjunction with our inner lives. Now, some people would say that this is kind of an erroneous path to take because you're using some kind of intervention in a layer that would exist between you and the Creator, Father, Mother, God Almighty, right? Why would you need these things if you just had a direct pipeline to Father, Mother, God Almighty? Well, that's a great question. And my answer would be that there are times where you can use both. Why wouldn't you use both? There are times when if you're out and about, you don't have an astrological chart, or you don't have a tarot card deck, or you don't have your numerology wired up, and you're out and about, so you would have to kind of rely on your, the inner voice, the still small voice, the inner wisdom that comes with being connected with divine source. You connect with divine source all the time. But if you're using these tools, what you're doing is you're getting a kind of a quick X-ray. Think of it as an MRI. Think of these tools as an MRI. When you go and get that MRI, they can slice down any part of whatever it is that they're taking at that point in time. And if they're taking an image of your brain, there's going to be another part of your brain somewhere down the line, which is a different part of the brain, right? So it's not, even though it's the brain, they're getting a large kind of surface area. And so you can slice at any point in time in that surface area and come up with a picture of what's going on with that particular slice. But that particular slice won't help you with other shots of the brain that are further down the scan or the scope of the magnetic resonance imaging equipment. So that's what this is. These are like those slices, but it's not the whole brain. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think you do. So I think there's a time and a place for both. And what I always try to do is I always try to link them up and have them as kind of one interconnected and integrated relationship between the two. That's it's all the Libra in my 11th house. What can I say? I'll share with you a quick story, and then we'll get back into the what's happening astrologically. When I was doing tarot readings in Atlanta during the Olympics, this was back in 1996, I was trying to find a place to read the tarot cards. And I was right across from the Olympic Village. Some of you may have heard this story before, but I was right across from the Olympic Village. And I was actually doing okay. I started to do tarot readings for these young kids selling Coke, and it was Coke. I think Coke was running the Olympics, and water, Coke and water. And I did it for free. And all of a sudden, after they took off, I might have had one small little paying reading. Somebody gave me $5 or something. These guys came over, and they were asking me all these questions about the cards. And they were talking about the cards as being false idols. And turns out that one of the guys was a minister there in Atlanta. And he looks at me and he says, he throws down a challenge to me, and he says, "Do you think that your cards can create a miracle? Heal the sick, raise the dead?" And I said, "I don't proclaim these cards to be able to do that." And then I looked to my left and I saw somebody in a wheelchair. They were, I think, a paraplegic, or they had some kind of pretty intense disorder, definitely wheelchair bound, locked up, body is a jail. And I said, I looked over, I said, "Hey, you see that guy over there?" I said, "You think you can heal him?" And he didn't say anything. I said, that'd be a pretty good feat, don't you think? And he had this one guy that was with him. And the guy that was with him was kind of, the proverbial yes man. And he's like, yeah, that'd be a really good thing. That'd be a big thing. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Anyway, he gave me his card. He said, "Call me sometime." Pluto's in Capricorn. Neptune, Pisces, 7 degrees, again, retrograde. Pluto, Capricorn, 12 degrees. Now, I wanted to get back to Uranus. I got sidetracked. Last night, I was working on a post, and I looked. I wanted to find out what was happening astrologically during the time of the First Crusade. Okay, First Crusade, 1095, is when Pope Urban II declared a crusade on the Middle East, and Uranus was in Aries, right around 17, 18, 16, right in the zone that Uranus is at right now. So this is when the era of the First Crusade, 1095, Pope Urban II, did it with Uranus in Aries, right in those middle degrees. And here we are, back in the Middle East, back in Iraq, getting ready to throw down again the new crusade. Just wanted to share that with you. It's in my latest post. Neptune, Pisces, retrograde 7. Pluto, Capricorn, retrograde 12. True node in Libra at 26, also retrograde. And that's how the true node works, generally speaking, by the way. So it goes backwards. Starts at 30 Libra and then goes backwards. And then Chiron 17 in Pisces. So we have a Chiron Saturn exact trine today, which means that there can be deep and profound healing, especially as it relates to one's spiritual or occult belief systems. So maybe we can find common ground here and have the two not be so disconnected and detached. Birthdays, very interesting birthday, Tupac Shakur. Excuse me. Tupac is a total Gemini. And he was a great orator. Tupac was kind of amazing. Tupac was a guy that tended to play both sides. I think he could be erudite, and he could, hang out and articulate with anybody. But then he could throw down, and he could be an OG and be the main icon for thug culture. I mean, one of the things that people don't know about Tupac, maybe they do, if you really are into hip hop, he was a powerful dude. I mean, he was bringing a type of awareness to the black community and a type of self-acceptance that was incredibly empowering. He was getting, especially black males, to kind of accept and embrace their culture and where they came from, and why it was okay, why it was nothing to be ashamed of. He was helping them in some ways, get into their shame and heal their shame. That's a really powerful thing to do. Now, the downside was that he, in some ways, was politicizing this. Now, I guess you can't have one without the other, and that would be an interesting topic for a whole other show. But he was also politicizing what was going on, and it could be theoretically quite dangerous. But hey, that was the life he lived. He lived a very dangerous life. Fascinating guy, and of course, there are some people who believe that he might even still be alive, that he faked his death. I don't think so. I think Tupac is gone, and he was a great artist and a really interesting character. And I don't think we haven't seen the likes of Tupac. And the other thing about Tupac, which is interesting, is that he had finally figured out the game. He probably knew the game, but he got all the information that he needed, and I think that's where he was going. I think he wanted to rip the veil off of the music industry and also the control systems. His mom, Afeni Shakur, was a Black Panther. He grew up in that environment. He grew up with COINTELPRO. He grew up, he was a child of the revolution. That's what he was. And hey, the guy's missed. If you look at his chart, it's got a fascinating chart. I had it up here a little while ago. Now, what I'm looking at does not have the rising sign. There's no birth date. I'm sure you can find it. So this is one of Lois Rodin's charts. And he has a mystic rectangle with a grand trine. So he's got his grand trine with the true node Mars in Aquarius. So he is a culture changer. He's a revolutionary. He is somebody that brings a perspective that is contrary to, what people have bought into. We could certainly see that with his kind of embracing of thug culture and allowing other men, particularly inside of his world, to embrace that. So it's a very Aquarian kind of thing to do. Now he also had Mercury conjunct his sun, so he's an orator, he's articulate. So you've got the sun and Mercury trine into Mars in the true node. And then there is Uranus and Libra, part of that grand trine, dynamic, electric. These are dynamic and electric aspects. These are not, kind of minor league trine aspects. You've got the sun involved, you've got Mercury involved, you've got Mars involved, the true node involved, and Uranus. Uranus trine Mars is radical. That's what that is. Absolutely radical. Moon and Aries, we were just talking about Aries ascendant, well, at least based on this chart. But Moon and Aries, fiery moon, and that Moon and Aries opposes Pluto, which is pretty intense in the chart. And what else do we have? Saturn. It looks like Saturn is right at the cusp of Gemini. I think it's in Gemini, like 0 degrees Gemini maybe, and it's certainly conjunct Venus in Gemini. Tupac does not have a whole lot of water in his chart. The only water he has is Jupiter in Scorpio, it looks like. Neptune in Sag. Not much water for Mr. Shakur. And no Earth. No Earth. Interesting. Well, I take that back. Pluto in Virgo, very late degree. So it is a transpersonal planet where that Earth exists. But a serious character, Tupac Shakur, born today, 16th of June, 1971, Bronx, New York. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host. Look at the 11th house. That's a Mercury retrograde moment. It's the 11th house. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit of a break here. I'm going to play a little bit of music. We're going to try to break things up every half an hour with this show. And it's going to get a little more structured and formatted as I get back into it. So why don't I do this? Why don't I play a little bit of music? And then we will reconvene in a few minutes. And I'll get into some more astrology. We'll look at some aspects. Maybe we'll get into relocated charts. We'll do that in the second part of the show. So what do I want to play today? Let's how about you know what I haven't played in a long time? I have not played Ari Oakland. This is Anime from Ari Oakland. You're listening to the 11th House. I'm Robert Phoenix, 11th House Radio. I'll be back in 4 minutes and 10 seconds. We'll get into the relocated chart. Then after that, we'll do some live readings. Here's Ari Oakland.
I walked in the room and all the voices hit my face, conversations raging, but I just can't relate. And then a man with a crooked grin tells me all that's been what I'm missing in my life. And I said, am I alone here in a context so unclear? Cause I don't know what is what and why is why. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. Don't tell me ignorance is bliss, cause that's just selfishness, as we don't exist in a state of perpetual happiness. You worry about your clothes and your affairs, cash, but baby, don't you know in the end we'll all be dust and ash. Yeah, we'll all die and we'll all cry and we'll all live for a better day. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. down and said, no, sir. I was disconnected from everything I knew as apathy grew into a jaded view of progress. And even under the light of the revealing sun, all the foresight in the world can't save you from isolation, alienation, constellations of hate and power strewn in the sky. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. And the truth is that the enemy is the real tragedy. I raise my hands up to the sky and stare and wonder and begin to sigh. They'll say, what a life. Ho!
That was Ari Oakland and Enemy, and you're listening to the 11th House Radio, or 11th House Radio, the 11th House. We're here, you're here, I'm here. I'm Robert Phoenix, I'm your host, and we're going to be talking about the relocated chart. But before I do that, I found this clip on YouTube, and it's I have no idea how good it is. I have no idea at all, but it's about Tupac.
This world is such and when I say this world,
hold on. It's about Tupac. Let me go back. This is Tupac talking about God, the Illuminati, poverty, thug life, and racism. So I'm going in cold with this. All right, so I'm going to play this and let you guys get a little taste of Tupac before we get into the relocated chart. Here we go.
because this world is such a, and when I say this world, I mean it. I don't mean in an ideal sense. I mean in every day, every little thing you do. It's such a, gimme. Everybody back off. You know, everybody's like, you taught that from school, everywhere. Big business. You want to be successful? You want to be like Trump? Gimme. Push. Step. Crush. That's how it all is. And it's like, nobody ever stopped. Just, you know, I feel like, instead of us just being like, slavery's bad, bad whitey. I mean, all right, let's stop that. And everybody's smart enough to know that, I mean, we've been slighted, and we want ours. And I don't mean by, like, ours, 40 acres and a mule, because we're past that. But we need help. I mean, for us to be on our own 2 feet, us meaning youth or us meaning black people, whatever you want to take it for us to be on our own 2 feet, we do need help. Because we have been here. We have been a good friend. If you want to make it a relationship type thing, we have been there, and now we deserve our payback. It's like you got a friend that you don't never look out for. You know, you dressed up in jewels. Now America's got jewels, and they paid and everything, and they lending money to everybody except us. And it's like, you know, everybody need a little help on their way to being, you know, self-reliant. I mean, if this is truly a melting pot in the country where we care about it, and Lady Liberty got a hand like this, she really loves us, then we really need to be like that. And it needs to be the black kids. If there's a white person who got money, then you need to help them. You need to help black kids, Mexican kids, Korean kids, whatever. But it needs to be real. And it needs to be before we all die, and then you say, oh, I made a mistake. We should have gave them some money. We really should have helped these folks. It's going to be too late. You know what I'm saying? And then that's when you got to pay your own karma. And that's when God make you punish. When God punishes you. Because I feel like, you know, there's too much money here. I mean, nobody should be hitting lotto for $36 million, and we got people starving in the streets. That is not idealistic. That's just real. That is just stupid. There's no way Michael Jackson should have, or whoever Jackson, should have $1 million, $2 billion, and then there's people starving. There's no way. There's no way. These people should own planes, and their people don't have houses, apartments, shacks, drawers, pants. I know you're rich. I know you got $40 billion, but can you just keep it to one house? You only need one house. And if you only got 2 kids, can you just keep it to 2 rooms? I mean, why have 52 rooms and you know there's somebody with no room? It just don't make sense to me. It don't. And then these people celebrate Christmas. They got big trees, huge trees, all the little trimmings. Everybody got gifts, and then somebody's starving. And they're having a white Christmas. They're having a great Christmas, eggnog and the whole nine. That's not fair to me. I think that when there's hopelessness, people revolt. Because it's like there's nothing that's like, it's like we're going, is America going to help us ever? Because, we know for a long time they haven't. Are they ever? And it's like all these things are showing us no. And there's somebody going, no, they're not going to help you. No, they're not going to help you. And then, of course, we see it. No, they're not helping us. All BS aside, it all comes down to we got to survive. Even warriors put their spears down on Sundays. We got to survive here in this country. Because I'm not going back to Africa. We got to survive here. For us to survive here, white folks, black folks, Korean folks, Mexican folks, Puerto Ricans, we got to understand each other. We got to take a bigger chance. And when I say Americans, people think I'm talking about Uncle Sam. Like actually Uncle Sam with the gray hair and the flag. You, the guy, you, the mechanic, wherever, you. You need to do something. You need to check yourself and see how racist you are. You know what I'm saying? It's real. Because this world is such a...
Well, it's an interesting interview. Again, I went in fresh with it. I had not, vetted that at all. And typical Gemini kind of fashion, weaving back and forth, basically saying that we're in this together, that we have to help each other out, but then coming back and then having this whole other, narrative about needing help. And I'm not really sure he was clear. That's my sense on that. He certainly is articulate, and he's got some passion and a lot of charisma. And I don't think he's saying, well, we don't need 40 acres and a mule because that's past. And so what is he really referring to? Anyway, today's his birthday. Interesting guy. I hope you are resting in a true state of peace, Tupac. Okay, so let's talk about the relocated chart. Since Tupac is relocated to another spiritual realm, spiritual dimension, and state of consciousness, let's talk about the relocated chart in general. So the relocated chart, here's how it works. Okay, you can go to astro.com, a great website. I use it all the time. It's where I get birthdays from. It's where I do my charts from. So astro.com, and if you go in there and you put your chart information in, you'll get your chart. You'll get a forecast for the day, daily forecast. And you'll also get a kind of an overview of the major transits that are going on in your life and a bunch of other goodies. Now, if you go deeper into it, you can go into the charts section, and you can have any number of charts sort of dialed up once you put your info in there. And one of the charts that you can get is a relocated chart. So how you would do this, if you're interested, is you go into the chart selection, and your chart will already be entered in, and you'll hopefully be on your chart when you go into chart selection. There's a drop-down menu, and if you go down far enough, you'll find something that says relocated chart. Well, you'll click that, you'll let that come up so that you can have the relocated chart. Now, what you have to do is you have to enter in a different place if the place is other than your birthplace, and I'm assuming it would be since it's a relocated chart. So you would actually enter in a new place, and there's a opt-in for that on that very same page. You click through that link, you put the new place in, and then you punch up the chart. So it will be your chart in that place that you're thinking about going, or the place that maybe you've come from, or the place that you're currently in. But again, it is not where you were born. So that's why they call it a relocated chart. So now you have a chart based on that place that you're living. And it's absolutely fascinating how it works. Everything shifts, and depending upon how far away it is, it shifts. There's a greater degree of shift. So, for instance, I was born in Verdun, France, and when I do the relocated part, my sun, which is in the 10th house, moves to the first house. And my ascendant, which is normally Scorpio at 29, becomes a Virgo ascendant here in Austin, Texas. It was Uranus when I was living in California. So then you begin to look at the chart in the area that you're living. And it's absolutely fascinating to see the correspondences. And you begin to literally relocate part of your energy. And you begin to, if you're in this place for any, amount of time, you'll see how the chart will manifest. And I'm living proof of that here in Austin, Texas. My chart when I was living in California was Uranus on the ascendant, and I had a lot of strange, kooky, wild, wonderful stuff happening with Uranus there. And I was a Leo rising in California. I had long hair a lot of the time in California. So here in Austin, I become a Virgo rising, and I tell you, it was a lot more fun being a Leo rising, and a lot more fun with Uranus on the ascendant. Now I've got Pluto on my ascendant here, and it's intense. Life is intense, and I'm more engaged in the self in a lot of ways than I was, say, when I was in California, where my sun was in the second house versus the first house. So now I have Pluto on the ascendant, Sun in the first, and my true node also in the first. So understanding who I am, having kind of almost like an Aries type of experience now is important to me because I'm testing myself against the world with my Sun in the first house and true node in the first house as well. And then, of course, Virgo on the ascendant. And Pluto here has been really intense because there are people, I gotta tell you, there are people here that have not, that I think are a little freaked out by me at times. And I also have to say that I have not been incredibly open at times with people when they ask me what I do for a living, because I am still not sure how people in this part of the world will actually take it. So I generally tell them that I am a writer. And again, this is part and parcel of Virgo on the ascendant, because Virgo is a pretty conservative sign. So I'm opting to have the more conservative projection of who I am. So when you do a relocated chart, you can get a sense as to what your life is going to be like when you live in a new place. That's how it works. And if you're moving not far from where you were born, it's not going to change a whole lot. You may see a few things. I just had a client recently, and he is moving from Michigan/Indiana, the Midwest, and I think he's Michigan, and he's moving to Ecuador. Now, if you look, Ecuador and parts of Ecuador are running in alignment, in vertical alignment with parts of Michigan. Believe it or not, they're not that far apart. So his chart didn't change dramatically, but what did change about it was there were a couple of personal planets in Uranus, which had been in the 12th house, moved into the first house. So he would have a much easier time sort of getting a handle on those 12th house energies. They're going from being hidden, being reserved, to being really kind of out in front and on the surface that people can touch them and feel them and interact with them. So that would be a major change because it's the first house. So sometimes you don't have to have a lot of planets change. If they're significant planets and they impact the ascendant, that could be enough. Trust me, it could be enough. If you're planning to move or even go on vacation, a relocated chart could be a really interesting tool for you to kind of understand where you're at and what you're going to go through
while you're in that place. Now, what's ironic is that I did not do a relocated chart for Austin. I just, for me, it was more along the lines of a human design moment. So I was waiting for it. It was an invitation, and I am a 2/4 projector, and I have to wait for the invitation. So that was the invitation, and I took the invitation. And then when I got here, after a few months, I was like, holy shit, I got Pluto on my ascendant here. Nah. But it's okay. It's all good. It's all good. So the relocated chart is using the same planets as your birth chart, but just in a different place. Is everybody clear about that? And then you can make a determination or a series of determinations about that place based on the relocated chart. Plain and simple, there it is. Now, sometimes you don't, well, I'm just trying to figure this out. Because for me, the relocated chart is also in kind of conjunction with using the dragon's head on the ascendant for a chart, which is how Nostradamus apparently did many of his charts. He would stick the dragon's head, aka the north node of the true node, put that on the ascendant, and then everything else would flow out from that point. And the reason I believe he did that is because he could understand where the true node or north node was, and then based on that create a chart. Not everybody knew their birth time, and back during the days of Nostradamus, they were actually into conception time. Yep, conception time. That was even more important than birth time. And maybe we can do a show one of these days on conception astrology. How does that sound? All right, it is 1:04 here in Austin, Texas. You're listening to the 11th House. So what I want to do is I want to open this up, and I want to give people the opportunity to call in. It's been a long time since I've done a live free reading, and we can do that. And if you want, I can even maybe do a tarot reading for you today. If you'd like a tarot reading instead of an astrology reading, we can do that. We can set that up because, again, we're going to be incorporating more systems of divination into this show and not just astrology. So 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995, and that is the number to call in if you would like a reading, an astrological reading or a tarot reading. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play just a little bit more music, and I'll get my cards and make sure that we're all together here now, ready to go. And then we'll go from there. So what do I want to play? Something short, fast, and sweet. Let's see. One World. I think this is Dwight Loop. Let's play this. I'll be back in 3 minutes and 29 seconds. You're listening to the 11th House, 11th House Radio. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host.
It follows from the special theory of relativity.
I have a dream. It's one small step for man. It's a long fish. Democracy and freedom for all.
seen the Earth from space, and for the hundreds and perhaps thousands more who will. The experience most certainly changes your perspective. Things that we share in our world are far more valuable than those we can hide. As I looked down, I saw a large river meandering slowly along for miles, passing from one country to another without stopping. I also saw huge forests extending across several borders, and I watched the extent of one ocean touch the shores of separate continents. Two words leapt to mind as I looked down on all of this: commonality and interdependence. We are one world.
So properly, doesn't it? That was Kenji Williams, by the way. Sorry for the hard ending. That was how it was sent to me. Kenji Williams, ABA structure with One World. Sad news. I was just looking at the news as I was cruising through the internet while the song was playing. Mr. Baseball from San Diego, Tony Gwynn, has passed away. So one of the greatest and most prolific hitters of all time, one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet, Tony Gwynn, very young, passed away today. I believe he was 54, if I'm not mistaken. And, of course, Tony Gwynn Jr. Is playing Major League Baseball. His brother, Chris Gwynn, also played baseball. And a great ambassador to the game and the San Diego area, Mr. Padre. And left us far too soon. Chuck Noll passed away as well 2 days ago. The 83-year-old former coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So God bless you, Tony Gwynn. All right, we got some callers here. People are wanting to do a reading of some sort. I think this might be Tessa. Let's find out. Hello there.
Hi.
Hi, who's this?
This is Tara.
Tara. Hi, Tara. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So I assume you've been listening and you heard the call for a reading, and that's why you're here now, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Now, I have offered up tarot readings today if somebody wants a tarot reading, but I'm also willing to look at charts and go in that direction too. So I'm going to leave it up to you. What would you like to look at, and what medium you want to use?
If you're willing to do charts, that would be fabulous.
Okay, why don't we do that? And why don't we go here and let's go into the, since there's not a lot of people waiting, we can do a full chart. Where are you calling from, by the way?
Cold Spring, New York.
Cold Spring, New York, okay. All right, so let's go here. And then let's go here. And here. All right, go ahead and give me your birth data.
January 9, 1959, and that's 9:14 a.m.
January 9, 1959. Okay, and what was the time again? I apologize.
9:14 a.m.
And where was that?
Menominee, Michigan. MENOMINEE. Michigan.
There it is. Yeah. Okay. Are you? Can you turn your computer down just a bit?
Sure.
Thanks, because I can hear us.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, great. All right, I've got your chart up, and do you know much about your chart at all? Because sometimes people come in, cold. I mean, really cold. They don't even know what's going on in their chart. So do you know much about your chart?
I know a bit.
Okay. Aquarius rising, Chiron, right in Aquarius, right there on the ascendant. The midheaven is Sagittarius 10, and then you have Pluto hanging out in the 7th house in Virgo, and you are, for the most part, what I would call a transpersonal person, meaning that most of your planets are in the transpersonal houses, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and it is kind of it's kind of a modified bucket chart because you've got Mars down there in the 3rd and kind of everything else splayed between the 6th and the 12th. So you have a lot of material pretty much in the 12th house. Your sun, we'd almost read for the 12th, certainly the moon, and Venus. So it's an interesting chart, and there's some complexity to it. And a lot of times people that have, because not only do you have planets in transpersonal houses, but they're transpersonal planets in transpersonal houses.
Okay.
So you've got the signs and the houses themselves. And, these charts can be difficult for people to have. And it can take people that have, these kind of, titanic and large transpersonal elements to find out what they're supposed to do in life. Because in many ways, they're not here to have a basic and kind of ordinary and fundamental human existence. And that's not to say that you or anybody else that has a chart that is similar is better or worse than somebody who might have their planets clustered from house 2 to house 7. It's just a different kind of experience. And I think that people that have a chart like this can be very disappointed in kind of the type of life, especially in America, that we have been nurtured and indoctrinated to accepting and experiencing, which is you go through public school, maybe you get a secondary degree, you find somebody, you fall in love, maybe you have your career and something else on the side. If you're a woman, if you're a man, you have the career, and all these things would lead to children, and then you would have some kind of family, and then it would, you would go through these stages of evolution and raising your kids and getting them off to school and all those things that we would ascribe to having a normal life in America may not always apply to somebody with a chart like yours. And you can do it, you can have that life, but it won't necessarily be easy because there's some other emphasis that you are here for. And if you try to have that kind of life with a chart like yours, it can be very difficult. There's compromises that will always have to be made. Unless you meet the right person, they won't understand you. They won't understand that you have a need to have something greater than, quote unquote, the American life. And if that takes place, then you'll have conflicts in your relationship. You have conflict in your marriage. Sometimes it will end as a result of that. So this is not always the easiest chart to have. Now, it does have a tremendous potential for growth in terms of you going beyond yourself and you being engaged in culture or society or the world with a capital W and in quotes. Now, the challenge with your chart is that 12th house, and especially the moon and especially Venus, because these are, and even the sun, because the sun is so close to that 12th house cusp, that these are very personal planets. So your innermost feelings, your closest relationships, and while I wouldn't necessarily say that having Moon and Venus in the 12th house is bad, because you can have some interesting kinds of energy with Moon and Venus in the 12th house. It's almost like having Moon in Pisces or Venus in Pisces. It's very soulful. and the types of emotions and relationships that you can have can be very deep. In some ways it can even offset that Capricorn moon, which can be sort of distant and aloof at times. But the majority of the emotional experience, the relational experience, takes place away from the world. The people don't really know how you feel. People don't really know how you emote. Sometimes when Venus is in the 12th house, there are relationships that are hidden away from the world. There can be affairs. There can be the desire to have a really deep and profound kind of soulmate connection, and you're hiding out or you're hanging out until you really find that person in your life. And you may even have other relationships going on. You may have a relationship where it's a kind of a householder relationship, but the needs of the relationship and your needs may not always be met with that Venus in the 12th house. And by the way, Venus is in Aquarius, so it's an unusual relationship, or relationships with unusual people outside of your culture, outside of your color, outside of your class, outside of your race, outside of your religion, and sort of tucked away from the rest of the world. Now you have some passion. You've got a nice trine between Mars, which is in Taurus. By the way, Mars in Taurus gets a bad rap. It's like it's in its detriment, right? Mars in Taurus, but right. Mars in Taurus is vital. There's a lot of there's kind of an earthy intensity and vitality with Mars in Taurus. Now it's not as dynamic as Mars in Aries. It's not as schizo as Mars in Gemini, but it's got some gravitas, that Mars in Taurus. And once there's some momentum built in the individual's life with Mars in Taurus, it can be really unstoppable. So you've got that nice Mars trine, Mars to Sun trine. So you've got passion, you've got Earth, you're connected to Earth energy, and anything that you do that brings you back into your body will be extremely regenerative and make you feel really super grounded. You've got Mars trine Moon, which is again very passionate in some ways, bringing the hidden emotions and the hidden emotional content out of the 12th house down into the 3rd house, which can be interesting to some extent. And then, you've got the Sag midheaven. So you're here for some really kind of authentic expression of who you are. Whoa. Hold on one second here. So we have this energy with Mars and the Sun, and it's dynamic. But the Sagittarian midheaven, it's like Sagittarian midheaven has a mission. Okay, there's a mission to fulfill with the Sagittarian midheaven. Sometimes it can be sort of overzealous. Sometimes it can be really self-righteous. Sometimes it can be really right on and spot on, and very directed in terms of where it wants to express itself. And no work, you can't do any kind of work, or you can't have any kind of career that will fence you in, because Sagittarius on the midheaven does not want to be fenced in. It needs open spaces, open places. It needs open architecture, whatever that is. And with Mercury there, you even though it's again, I believe it's a detriment in Sagittarius, still Mercury plays a large role, in your chart. It's in a wide trine with Pluto, so you've got a Pluto-Mercury trine going on in your chart, which is powerful. It's penetrating. So you have to use your mind, and you have to use your mind in the service of helping other people too, because the tail of your Mercury is that Pluto in Virgo, and Saturn is there in the 10th house, and that's at 0 degrees Capricorn. To me, that indicates that you will come to your path, later in life in some ways. Now, Saturn is going to be moving into Sagittarius, not your path, your true vocation later in life. Probably your second Saturn return, which is about 3 years out. So Saturn right now is in Scorpio, and it will cross over your natal Jupiter in the 9th house by the end of the year. So you're going to have a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. That's actually a pretty good conjunction because what Saturn does is it kind of puts a little bit of a ceiling on Jupiter, and Jupiter can actually expand Saturn. Now, it's in the 9th house. So one of the things that can occur during this Saturn transit there are two things that can occur, a couple of things that can occur. One is that you could decide that you want to go back to school and study something, believe it or not, Or it could also indicate that you would want to make some kind of significant move in your life. And that move could free up a lot of energy, can free you up from your past, free you up from your legacy. And what you really want to do is you want to catch this wave because Saturn is headed towards your midheaven and will hit your midheaven next year. Now, when Saturn reaches the midheaven, it indicates that there is a peak, then that everything that has gone on between, the 10th house and the first house when Saturn emerged out of the 12th house in Aquarius, that there's been an accumulation of wisdom, accumulation of knowledge, and accumulation of life experience. So theoretically, Saturn should be in its fulfillment phase when it hits your 10th house. So that's actually really, really good. Now, what happens here in November of this year when Saturn hits your Jupiter is something shifts. Something is cleared out for you to actually really tackle Saturn moving onto your midheaven and beginning to come into this kind of transpersonal destiny, which I think is coming your way, especially when you hit your second Saturn return, and that's at 0 degrees Capricorn. Your true node is in the 8th house. It's in Libra, so we know that the true node is that place where you need to go in order to kind of understand your life purpose. So it's about relationships. It's about finding balance and synergy between other people, but it's also about finding balance and synergy between your inner life and your outer life, because it's in the 8th house, and that's I talked about the 8th house earlier. That's an intense house. It's a house of depth. It's a house of power. It's a house of the shadow, shamanism, psyche, love, sex, death, eros. It's all hanging out in the 8th house. So when you have your true node there, that's where you go. That's your home, right? That's where you dwell. And it's about finding balance between being in that place and being in the world as well, and having these kinds of really deep, intense, and shamanic experiences so that you can, bring them out into the world and say, hey, look what I've learned, or look what I've done, or see the growth that I've incurred. There's kind of a quality here with that true node in the 8th house and also with Neptune in the 8th house as it's almost like Persephone and going through sort of, dark patches and dark places and dark spaces in the life every now and then to experience some kind of rebirth. Now, the good news is that your true node is in trine with Chiron, and it's in trine with your ascendant. So anything that's experienced within the realm of the 8th house comes out through the personality, and you're able to transform those experiences into a broader sense of acceptance for yourself, because that's what Aquarius on the ascendant is. It's about accepting yourself and all your warts and, and all your, kinks and all your quirks and everything that's associated with the self and the ascendant. Aquarius, especially with Chiron there, it's about accepting that, right? And so there's this process that takes place, this deep process with the true node in the 8th house, which you go through again and again and again, which leads to greater self-acceptance. And as you have greater self-acceptance, you begin to accept the world around you to a greater degree as well. There can be at times a strident quality with Aquarius there on the ascendant with Chiron there, but ultimately what I see is that Chiron and that ascendant is about space. It's about clearing out space for who you are so you can be in the world and show up however you need to be, and thus allowing other people to have that experience as well. It can be very, very liberating, especially once you get it, because once you get it, you allow other people to get it and experience it as well. And that's cool, right? They're like, there's no judgment, there's no trips, they can just be. So that's a big part of your chart. So I think you've got some very interesting days ahead of you, especially as we approach November and beyond, and Saturn begins to move towards your midheaven and then takes up residence in your 10th house. Your 10th house does not have a lot of degrees to it, though. It's got 5, 10, 15. It's about 22 degrees, so it'll be a fairly fast Saturn transit through your 10th house. But you've got a pretty solid 11th house. Your 12th house is where there's a lot of real estate. 12th house and the first house as well. In fact, you have currently both Neptune and Chiron and Uranus right in your first house. So anyway, there you go.
Excellent.
Kind of a quickie reading there. Is that cool?
That was very cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, don't be a stranger to the show. And, of course, you can check out my website, robertphoenix.com, and you have a great day, okay?
Excellent. Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, let's take another call. Hey, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello, this is Tessa.
Hey, there you are. What's happening, Tessa?
Oh, I was wondering if you could do a relocated chart because I was led here by a series of visions.
Okay. And are we doing a relocated chart for where you came from, where you want to go? How do you want to approach this?
For where I'm going.
So, like another location then?
Oh, I see. No, where I am now is kind of far from where I was born.
Okay, so, all right, let's do this. Let's do your regular chart, okay?
Okay,
And then,
you should already have it.
I may or may not. Can we do it again? Because I've got the window open here. So let's just do your chart again. Okay, give me your birthday.
June 20, 1954.
Okay.
In Culver City, California.
Right, okay. What time?
Don't have it in front of me. I think it's 7:43 p.m.
All right, that sounds accurate enough, right?
If it comes up Sagittarius rising, I got the time right.
All right, well, let's look at it. Culver City. All right, there we go. Yep, Sag rising. Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
So now let's look at the city that you want this relocated. First of all, what I'm going to do, let me do this. Let me pull your other chart out.
I'm curious as to whether this was a correct move. You never know the source of a vision till you test it.
Okay, so what was the place?
Crestline, Crestline, California. And if that doesn't come up, I'm in shouting distance of Lake Arrowhead.
Okay, I don't think it's going to be that much different, to be honest with you, because they're going to be very, very close. All right.
No, it is about 75 or 80 miles.
It's close. Trust me. So it's going to be basically the same chart, but I'll do it anyway. Let's do Crestline. Yep, there it is. Yeah, it's still at that 34 degree. So hold on.
Okay. Latitude's the same, but what about longitude?
Hold on a second. Let me go back here. Do relocated. Relocated. Relocation. Desecration.
So it's basically the same.
It's basically the same. It's 1 degree off. You're in your birth was
Let's
24.
try something else then. I'm considering a move to Dallas, Texas.
Well, that's a little more interesting. Let's do the relocated chart to Dallas, Texas. Okay. Here we go. And Tessa, there she is. And modify this place. Town. Dallas, Texas. Okay, yeah, this should be different. Here we go. So let me just make sure we have the, hold on. Tessa, and then, hold on one sec here, just,
Okay. Here we go. All right. Bang. Everything's set. Yes, yes, yes. That's Tessa. Right, here we go. All right. So in Dallas, you are a Capricorn rising. And you have Saturn in Scorpio on the midheaven, which is good in a lot of ways, because if you wanted to have more involvement in the world, that Saturn will bring it out. Jupiter and the Sun in the 6th house. So I would say that your Jupiter-Sun conjunction in the 6th house would bode quite well for your health. Be good for your health. And the Sun is trining Saturn, and Sun is in trine with Moon. So this would be a place where you could experience some healing, some recovery. And also a life work, too, because Sun is in the 6th house, and it's trining Saturn right in your midheaven. This would be an interesting place for you. The only planet I am concerned about is Mars, and that's in your 12th house. And it's opposite the Sun, and it's opposite Jupiter, but it does sextile Saturn. And Mars in the 12th house is the house of hidden enemies, and it can result in violence at times with Mars in the 12th house. So I would be slightly concerned about that Mars. Now the good news is that Pluto has moved past your Mars, so it's not on your Mars anymore. So that's a good thing. Pluto's moving forward to your true node, which is right on your ascendant. And that's a very intense transit. When were you thinking of moving to Dallas, believe it, Tessa?
When?
Yeah.
In about a year.
That's good, because by that time, Pluto hopefully will be over your ascendant and in your 1st house. When Pluto is moving, now Pluto's going to be on your true node anyway, right? I mean, but it's going to be in your 2nd house, roughly the end of your 1st and 2nd, and not relocated on your ascendant coming out of the 12th. Pluto coming out of the 12th and into the 1st is tricky. It's one of the more challenging and potentially powerful and volatile transitions in the entire zodiac. So if you waited for a year and have Pluto on the other side of your ascendant and in the 1st house, you'd have a much better handle on that energy. So I would say, yes, good place. Check it out.
Well,
maybe move there.
The
but wait
potential
for
for violence kind of worries me.
What's that?
The potential for violence from Mars is what worries me.
Well, look, people have lived entire lives with Mars in the 12th house. Okay, so now again, one of the mitigating factors is that you have a sextile here between Saturn and Mars, and to me that represents some kind of protection. Right? Saturn's the heavy of the zodiac, right? And when it's on your midheaven, there's some kind of protection. I guess what I would do with that Saturn in Dallas is I would try and be, instead of hiding out, I would try to be a public person. I would try to have as much face time and publicity as possible, because it seems to me like that's where the beneficence of Saturn, the Saturn-Mars sextile is. And again, with sextiles, you don't know how things are going to go until you activate the sextile. You don't activate the sextile until you activate the chart. You don't activate the chart, which is in this case would actually be moving to Dallas. So I actually like the sextile with Saturn and Mars. To me, it gives you some kind of cover, some kind of protection. But be public and be professional. This is an area where you could be very professional, where you could, meet deadlines and, be really structured and organized, and could bode well for a second or even third career in your life. Plus, you've got Venus relocated in the 7th house, and that's in Leo, which is the potential for new contracts, new partnerships, new relationships. I wouldn't be afraid of this place. Grand trine, Sun trine Saturn, trine Moon, and so I'd roll the dice. Mars is a risk. So what? It's risk reward. I think you've got high reward.
Well, I am known for taking risks, but they're very carefully calculated.
I agree, and I would say that there's enough careful calculation with this chart that you could mitigate a lot of the intensity around Mars there. One man's opinion. Wait, though, until Pluto crosses the ascendant until you make this move.
Very interesting. Well, thank you.
All right, Tessa, it's great to hear from you, and take good care of yourself, all right?
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Tessa Dick, the wife and widow of Philip K. Dick, the author and visionary whose times we are apparently living in. The world that he saw activated by the pink light is the place that unfortunately we seem to be inexorably and rapidly moving towards. It is 1:40 here in Austin, Texas, South Central Texas, and you're listening to the 11th house. So I don't do this often, but I am going to do it today, and I'm probably going to be doing it more, only because this is where it's at. I do these shows, this show and Navigating. I do this show and I do the Friday show, the Friday Forecast, which brings you 1 to 2. Last week we had 3 interviews with people that are really important to the times that we're living in. Okay, I do these shows. I don't run any advertising. The advertising you hear, if you upload this show or you listen to the show, that comes from Blog Talk. Okay, I don't get any piece of that. So I do this on a voluntary basis. And I just like everybody else, I have to pay my bills and keep a roof over my head and keep my kid playing baseball. So if you feel like you'd like to donate to this show or any of the other shows or my blog or any of the things that I freely bring to the world, you can go to my website, robertphoenix.com, and I have a donation button in the upper left-hand corner of my website. Now, I am working on a model where this is going to change in the hopefully not too distant future, which means that I'm looking towards different models of monetization. I have to make a go of this. This is what I'm here to do. There's no way I can go back and be in the corporate world. So if you'd like to make a donation and keep this enterprise afloat, I would be happy to accept it. Let's take another caller. Hello there.
Hi, Robert. It's Christine from Louisiana.
Hey, what's going on?
Good things today, really good things. I've had a recurring dream with a number, and I can tell it's a very important dream, and I looked at what you were speaking about today and wanted to inquire. Okay, so where do you want to go? We've got all kinds of different little tools and toys to play with. Well, I am on the precipice of getting well. I have some new doctors. I'm dreaming of the big, heavy stage curtains opening and the lights going on and all the promises I made to the universe about when I get well. So I know that part of the puzzle. I can feel that it's imminent, that doctors will help me and I will help me and Spirit will help me get well. I've had 2 dreams where I'm having my 6th child. As you know, I have 3 sons. No girls, right. 3 grandsons. But in the first dream, I had 3 little girls, and I devoted all of my energy. I was my age, 56, and the boys were their age, and they're 25 to 30. but I got 3 little beds and chairs and tables, and I was totally devoted with my whole life that I needed nothing, I had nothing to aspire to except to raise happily these 3 little girls. And then in another dream, I was pregnant in labor and gave birth to my sixth child, a little girl. So I just wanted your insight on the number 6 and anything else that comes to you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm being distracted here by 2 birds on my deck who I think they're having a courtship ritual of some sort. So there's some kind of like bird lovemaking going on out here, which is interesting. Which is kind of interesting because we're talking about babies, right?
Talking about babies, and that's how they get made, for sure.
So I think something's happening here. There's some action happening on my deck. So number 6 is the number of family. Of course, we are in the 6th month, June, right?
I didn't think about that. Thank you.
Yep, and today is 16th, so it's a 6 kind of day. We're in 2014, and that is a 16 year. So if you want to, we have the 16 year, which is 6, the 16 day, which is 6, and then this is the 6th month, so it's 666, which I think means you're going to give birth to the Antichrist. I think that's what it means.
I knew there was a reason I called you this morning.
Yeah, so it's okay.
Well, I drew a tarot card just now, and the Antichrist it turned into the star. I drew the star.
Yeah, well, hey, somebody's got to do it. And, everybody has their role in destiny. So, well, I think I like the number 6. It to me, it's about if you're combining 6 with birth, then to me 6 is the birth of a new community, a new family, a new type of service and nurturing. I've been reading about 6, and it's connected to Venus, the planet Venus, and it's connected to Virgo at the same time. We think that maybe 6 would be, if it's related to Venus, it would be, perhaps Libra, but it's not. It's connected to Virgo. So there's a quality of nurturing and caregiving that's also associated with the number 6. So to me, this is the birth of a new type of community, a new opportunity to nurture, a new opportunity to have another type of family around you. Sometimes I would say,
Robert, that would make me so happy. And plus, I've been sick for 12 years, 2 6s, and I really do think it's ending. But all I want is community where I can serve and be a part, work with teams, help, love. Not be a shut-in. That would be great.
Yeah. Well, I would say that probably what we're talking about here is a move, right? Because for you to find that community would probably be about going to another place or a different place.
Right. That's on the forefront. I just need to get a little more well, but then that may be counterproductive because I may need to go somewhere to get a little more well.
Could be. I know you've got like family in Austin. Maybe Austin is your next place.
Maybe Austin. It's hard to avoid those grandbabies, and we Skype, but it's not the same. Maybe Cali, but now, what you said about nurturing community and all of that really does, it helps me grasp the meaning of being willing to start over with children. In the dream, I was so happy, like everything went to the side, but starting over with a new phase of life that involves community and nurturing, makes my eyes wet, yes, with happiness.
Well, good, because you have a lot to give.
Obviously. Oh, and of course you do too. And as I was turning you on, I heard my son with baseball, and I love seeing the photos. And you're so committed in such a beautiful, loving way to your son and to many spheres of all your pals out here who rely on you. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and I still owe you a late birthday gift. And what I'm going to do is I want to send you a year transit report, which is why I asked for your birthday. So I'll do that today, since you're fresh
Thank
on my
you,
mind.
sweetheart.
Yeah, and I'll
Thank
send that to you, and you can get a grasp of what's ahead for you for the entire year.
That's all I
cool?
want.
Yeah?
Thank you. It was nice being on your talk show. I enjoyed it. Hello to all my friends I met through Robert's Blog Talk Radio. And lots of love.
Well, lots of love to you, Christine. Stay in touch and stay well, okay?
Thank you. Great day. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. That's our friend Christine Maynard from Louisiana. And she was a guest on the show probably about, I don't know, maybe about a year ago. And she was experiencing all these really strange symptoms. And I got to know Christine a little bit. I know a little bit about her story. And I wound up connecting her with another person whose story was very, very similar. And that person became instrumental in getting Christine to Stanford University and having a major procedure done where she had, I believe it might have been a stent, or there was something that she had removed. And once that piece of really nasty plastic, or whatever it is, molybdenum or fiberglass or whatever they make those things out of, was removed from her body, Christine began to exhibit really fantastic symptoms of wellness and well-being. Now, she's had a bit of a relapse because her body just has not been used to this new state or condition. But she's getting stronger, she's changing her diet, she's doing all the things that people need to do if they want to be able to get healthy. So she's doing that, she's on the mend. But I guess the moral of the story is that she doesn't meet the person that hooks her up with Stanford University if somehow we're not connected. It's funny how the world works sometimes. Now, I'm just a guy doing a radio show here and having a blog and a Facebook account, and boom, next thing you know, two people meet, and then magic takes place. Miracles occur. And I was more than happy, thrilled to be the intermediary of that miraculous moment in time. All right, it is 10 to 2 here in cloudy Austin, and I swear to God, I just saw two birds make love right there out on my porch. There's a lot happening on my porch. My porch has become a window to the natural world since I've moved. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm enjoying it. In fact, it's become such a window. Some of you who follow me on Facebook, I posted a picture of this cottonwood boring beetle. Fascinating looking creature, big. It's one of the bigger bugs in the insect world. And it's beige, cream colored with white spots and big antlers and big legs and like these fuzzy boots. It's the coolest looking bug. And I took a photo of it, and I leave my door open here for the cats because they go out on the porch. And I didn't give it much thought, but I didn't see the beetle. I thought the beetle gone. Great, see you later. Sayonara. Adios, goodbye. And then yesterday, I'm sitting here typing, and I thought I felt my cats rubbing their tail against my leg, and I looked down, and it's this beetle crawling up my leg. That this beetle had found me. It had come in from the deck. Maybe it thought my leg was a tree trunk. I don't know, but it felt unusual. Anyway, that's my porch, the window to the natural world. I could do an Omaha Natural Kingdom. Remember Mutual of Omaha Natural Kingdom? Marlon Perkins and Jim. Marlon was always in the bushes, while Jim was out doing the dangerous shit. Right? Hi, I'm Marlon Perkins, and I'm here in the bushes having myself a very nice cool glass of Lipton iced tea, while Jim is over there trying to get a stool sample from that panther. Ah, the good old days. By the way, I got into an accident yesterday. It was the weirdest accident. It was a fender bender. I never get into, it's been years since I got into an accident with my car, and I don't even really consider this an accident. It was such a total Mercury Retrograde moment. I was in Costco, and I was pulling out of the stall, and there was a woman in a soccer mom van who was pulling out from the other side, and so we're doing it at the same time. Now, there's a guy in front of me coming towards me, and he's like, he's doing something, gesticulating. I don't know what the guy is doing, but I'm more focused on the guy in front of me than I am with what's behind me. I keep backing up, and all of a sudden, boom, I hit the van because it's backing up. Of course, she wasn't looking at me, but I'm backing up, so I'm the one that has to be accountable, right? It's not, it is weird. And we're both, I think we should both be accountable. Nothing happened in my car. Going 3 miles an hour. So anyway, I pull over, the guy gets out of his car, and he says to me, I was trying to get your attention. And I said, I had no idea what you were doing. And I said, you're trying to get my attention, kept me in some ways from focusing on what was behind me. So we had a major disconnect. Moral of the story is, you go to Costco, always look behind you. And try, and if you're going to intercede and try to help somebody out, get out of your car and point. Don't be a lazy ass and I have no idea what you're doing to the other person. My car is fine. I'm fine. All right, enough ranting. You're listening to the 11th House. I'm Robert Phoenix. And I've got a new post up on my website. You can go there and check it out. And it's about hunting for scapegoats in the time of Pluto and Capricorn. I suggest you read it. It's a good post. All right, that's it. I think we're done for today. I think we've reached the 12th house. We've gone from the 11th house. We're now docking in the 12th house. And I'm pushing off. And I'm saying goodbye. Adios. Arrivederci. Au revoir. And why don't we go out here with a little bit of Ari Oakland one more time. Instead of Enemy, why don't we play Wasteland? Let's do a little Wasteland, a little 12th house music. So this is Robert Phoenix. I'll be back on Friday with the Friday Forecast. I'll have Carl Johan Kalaman on, and we're going to be talking about what's happened to him since the big 12/21/12 date, and how he is working with the Mayan calendar and Mayan material post Mayan moment. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You're you. This is Ari Oakland. I'll see you on Friday.
The smoke-filled horizon begins to fade. Along gutters littered with the residue of the lives washed away. I hear the subterranean moans of living dead, whose ghosts walk on bearing the streets. Like their wealthy youth, they bend their head and hang towards their feet. Slowly trudge along, and I wander through the wasteland, and I've seen all those precious lives torn down. busy at work planting other corpses, desolation's garden, and I'm descending deeper in the dark. And I have wandered through the wasteland, and I've seen all those precious lands torn down, and I was going down in my pride, and forced to face the cold, bitter night. As the darkness closes in, I know the pale rider is coming for my soul. And struggling through the depth that surrounds, I climb a white ladder onto the scaffold. And watching the empty work of the hollow ghost, I shout, it's not my time. With glimmers